What is this 12-team playoff going to look like, and what is it going to mean for the regular season right about now? Well, let's take a look. In the proposed 12-team playoff, I've come up with a list of 33 teams that are either alive for their conference championship or in a position to compete for an at-large bid. Because remember, in the proposed 12-team model, we're going to take the 6 best champs and the 6 next best teams. So the first thing is that you've got this clearly defined path to the postseason for any team that's alive and could potentially get to a conference championship game and potentially win the conference championship game. So who are those teams still right now in the country? Let's go over them. If you're watching this show, the graphic is up. But if you're listening, I'm going to walk through every one of these teams. In the SEC, there are 2 teams left still alive for the conference championship, Georgia and LSU. In the Big Ten, you've got 2 divisions, and in each division, multiple teams are still alive to win the division and then obviously win the conference championship. Those teams are Michigan, Ohio State in the East, and in the West, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Purdue, and Wisconsin. All 5 of those teams. And by the way, none of them control their own destiny. In the Big 12, there is one team definitely going to the championship game. That's TCU. There are another 6 teams that are alive to compete against TCU in the Big 12 championship game. Kansas State, Baylor, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Texas Tech. Still right now, they're alive. You know that this is what would be so great. Like, think about Kansas. They were this unbelievable story early, and then they've just gone by the wayside. Why? Because we have a subjective 4-team invitational and not a postseason that is expanded to a point where we can have a clearly defined path for the champions of conferences. Texas loses that game. Heartbreaker. Their fans want to just jump in a river, right? And like, what are we doing? We got to change. Is Sark the right guy? They would still be alive, playing games that mattered as it related to the college football playoff. Out west in the Pac-12, all of these teams still alive to win the Pac-12. Oregon, USC, Utah, UCLA, and Washington. In the ACC, you've got Clemson and North Carolina already locked up their berths in the conference championship game, so they would still be alive. And then in the group of 5, I've come up with a list of 4 teams that I think, based on where they're ranked right now and the way the committee views them, that they would easily be one of the 6 best champions if they were to win their conference, and maybe 2 of the 6 best champions. UCF, Tulane, Cincinnati, and Coastal Carolina. So those are just the teams that are mathematically at this point alive to win their conference championship. That's how important a clearly defined path to the postseason is in the proposed 12-team playoff that we've got coming up, hopefully in 2024. Now, there's some other teams out there that would just be competing for at-large spots. And by the way, this list is awesome. Here's the teams that would be competing for an at-large spot: Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, Penn State, Florida State, Notre Dame. Like, yes, sign me up. Everybody, sign me up for exactly what I've got on the screen. There's 33 teams that would be left playing meaningful football this weekend if we had a 12-team playoff this year. So this weekend, when Baylor and TCU play, it's not just important for one team, it's important for both teams. This weekend, when you've got Utah heading up to Oregon, and all of a sudden that game from last week, Oregon's lost to Washington, it's like, well, this week lost all its luster. Now, no one's focusing on the fact that Utah is going up to Oregon. Well, in this model, it still means everything because there's a postseason berth on the line. Washington, what did the win do for you last week? Well, last week in the current format, it was just like hey, we ruined Oregon's season. Yeah, good for us. Now, right in the thick of it. It could be an at-large. It could be a conference champion. these games in the Big Ten West feel like, oh my gosh, who's going to actually, come out of the Big Ten West? Ugh. In a 12-team playoff, it's so different. Alabama, granted, you're not trying to play a meaningful game anyways because Austin Peay is coming to town. But at least you're playing meaningful games. And then the best one of all, at least in my estimation, Penn State. Penn State is a 2-loss team that is totally out of their division race. They've lost to 2 of the top 3 teams in the entire country, in Michigan and Ohio State, and they're not playing for anything right now. They would if there was a 12-team playoff. The bottom line is that this is just a snapshot. This is just a picture of how great it's actually going to be when we have these games like on a November 19th and into Thanksgiving, and we've got 30, 33, 35 teams that are still alive for their conference championships, still alive for an at-large bid. How big would Notre Dame's game against USC be for both teams in a 12-team playoff next week? Like, listen, this has to happen, and it has to happen like tomorrow, because currently what we have is really 8 teams total that can possibly go to the playoff. And it's minimizing the way that we watch college football, the way that we enjoy college football. And I think the overall size and value of the sport is diminished because of the 4-team invitational, right? Like, this needs to change, and it needs to change immediately. And this is evidence of that. Those 33 teams would be playing massive games this weekend that would have playoff implications, and not just a smattering of a few for the top 7 or 8 teams in the country.